Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Art Crush. Here in Art Crush, we discuss all things to do with art, surprising enough. And it's here with me, Fee Marks, and Paula Telizyn, both artists and both working in the art industry today.
Awesome. It's great to be here, Fee. So we're going to talk about gallery shows today. And yeah, we both have a lot of experience with gallery shows, but I'm going to let you jump in because your experience has been a lot more recent than mine.
Yeah, well, I see a lot, and I still think it's quite prevalent that artists really still want to be in galleries. I mean, I say there's art shows and there's galleries, and I think that times have changed. My experience is that art galleries take a lot high percentage if they sell a painting, which would be fine if they're working and promoting your work. But for a lot of them, the ones that I've been involved with, they just put it on the wall and hope for the best. So we have to find a different way to sell our art. So what do you think, Paula?
Yeah, I think that when people go through art schools, so my kids all went through an arts high school here in London. Um, they are taught only what the teachers know, and the teachers who are teaching have obviously been artists years prior because now they're teaching.
Exactly.
So they get this sort of old information, like you can't sell art on social media. It's not real art if somebody's paying you for a commission, and galleries are the only way to go. But with galleries, the commission-based galleries rapidly closing, so that the ones that are left are taking fewer and fewer artists, then you end up with the pay to play. And the pay to play galleries where you pay for wall space, or you pay for table space, or you pay for a solo show or whatever, you are their customer. The minute
Yeah.
you pay a gallery up front, they don't have to do anything else. They may say that they're going to do it, but they don't. You won't. They've sold their thing. They've made their money. They've done their job. Their job isn't to sell your art. It's to sell you a service of hanging your art. And I've been in both pay-to-play galleries and commission galleries. And the commission ones are by far better because the owners are motivated. They're motivated to have openings. They're motivated to sell. But the downside of a commission gallery is they don't tell you who your art sold to. You don't know how they're speaking about you to their clients unless you're there. They don't give you any information. And then you end up waiting also 30 to 60 days for your payment, less their fee. If you're waiting for 60 days, you know they have a cash flow issue. So I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, it's a way of like not selling your art by showing in galleries.
And yeah, and I think as well, just what you're saying, that it is so hard. What I found is, and I still find this, approaching galleries, trying to get, there's a big discrepancy in the art world for people who are selling in art fairs and arts trails, and then you go to a gallery. The cost of art is completely different. It's when you're at that middle of the range, perhaps not quite hitting 1,000, but your art is more than £500. It's very difficult to find the right places. So what advice would you give somebody, Paula, who wants to sell their art at that, who is at that middle range? Where do you go? What do you do?
Well, my number one thing is to sell on social media because
Yeah.
that's what I teach, and that's certainly been my best experience. I've done shows, I've done galleries. I haven't done art trails, but we don't really have them here.
Which is
Um,
this, yeah, it's
yeah,
sort of like a 2-day, 3-day art fair
yeah.
where it's like a pop-up art show,
Okay, yes, yes. So if you're desperate to have the foot traffic and the eyes on your art, and you really hate social media, which is a huge problem if you do, because it makes it more challenging to sell. I would go for the juried art shows. Now, there's a lot of competition for them, and they are expensive. But if you're already selling your art for 500 to £1,000, or even £1,000 to £2,000 or whatever, that cost can be mitigated by selling one or two pieces. Therefore, it is a reasonable price to pay to enter, but you have to choose these places carefully. It's better than a gallery because you know who's buying your art, you're doing the selling, you're present, people get to talk to you, so you have some level of control, but you lose control when it comes to how well the show is advertised, what the foot traffic is like, what the organization is like, what is going on behind the scenes. Now, one of my last shows was the worst show I'd ever been at. There was almost no people at it. We were locked in. We couldn't leave because they locked all the loading docks and stuff, so that the show
Are
was
you
so
sure
clean.
you weren't hijacked?
Maybe, but it cured me of shows. And I was stuck there in a boiling space because it was quite hot. It was summer, with nobody coming to purchase anything from anybody, waiting out the hours until we could pack up and leave. It was such a complete waste of time. And though I did my part by promoting it, if the organizers are not promoting it, if it's not being featured, on your municipality or your county or whatever's websites and in their media, it makes it very challenging.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do, like do the higher tier shows that have been around for years. So in Toronto, we have the Arts Project. It comes out every year. It's juried, it's expensive, but my goodness, it's well attended. And I know there's quite a few over in the UK as well that are very well attended, but they are juried, which means that people going to those shows expect a certain quality of art. And if you're selling
So
in,
when you say juried, do you mean like you mean like that you have to apply to be in it,
yes,
not that people are getting awards? That it's
no, no, no,
not
no,
saying, oh, this is right. I just thought I would
yeah.
clarify that, because when you first said it, I thought, oh, okay, you mean put yourself forward to be judged, but
No,
it's like I get it now. You mean yes,
they
yes.
want a certain quality. So like there's a show in Texas that I became aware of because one of my clients got invited to participate. It's called the Texas Masters. I don't know if it's still running now or not, but anybody who was there, they were handpicked. They were masters of their particular craft. And they usually walked away with tens of thousands of dollars in sales because the people who went to that show went expecting a certain quality of art. And they had the money to spend on that certain quality of art. Because when you hit a certain point where you're considered a master, your work is selling for quite a bit. So that's the kind of thing I would do. But the other thing I would do if I was resourceful and creative is I would find a space to rent. Not a gallery per se, but a space to rent. And I had four of my clients do this a few years back, where they got together, rented a community space of some kind, and threw an art show up for a weekend for 3 or 4 days. And I think it cost them all of maybe £200 or something. It was super cheap. And it was well attended. And it was a shock to the community a little bit because they had never seen artists just sort of go, I'm just going to throw my own show up. So that was really smart. And I would do something like that too. I would get together with artists. I think you've done something like that as well, Fee, where you got together with.
Yeah. I've done that a couple of times.
Mhm.
I would say with mixed results. I did do a solo show, which was actually at a friend's house. They had like I don't know what you call it, like a granny flat, I suppose. They had this anyway. They had this building in their garden that we turned into a gallery, and that was hugely successful. Sold a lot, got a lot of commissions. Then a group of us did hire a gallery. The gallery space was amazing, but the footfall was almost non-existent. It was like putting up an amazing exhibition that nobody saw. It wasn't right because the space wasn't open at the weekends. It
Yeah.
was in a municipal building, so people were going in to actually register births, marriages, and deaths, not really to buy art. So it was tricky. It was tricky, but yeah, so I think, yeah, it's a really good idea. Don't, be proactive. It's always the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there are lots of solutions based on your location. So one of the things that when I was running my art business that ran through my head all the time was grow where you're planted. Look for the opportunities locally. It's easy to say like, oh gosh, if I lived in Toronto or London, UK, I'd have all sorts of opportunities, but there are opportunities around us. We just aren't looking
Absolutely.
for them. And so your little show in Wales that was so successful, that was really absolutely incredible. But you had a couple of things working for you. Location was great. The person who owned the space was well connected, which also helped, and you
Yeah.
advertised it like mad.
Yeah.
So it ended up being this really fun, wonderful event. And that's what you have to look at locally as well if you're going to run a show is can you take
Exactly. And
public?
I already had clients that lived in that area as well.
Well, that helps. Yes.
Yeah, which really did help because they came and they brought people with them.
Yep, that makes a difference. I think also you can run shows that you don't expect to sell that just add your name to sort of the local knowledge, the zeitgeist in a way. So like hanging shows in a
Exactly.
library, you wouldn't expect to sell your art in a library, but people come to the library to seek knowledge, to connect, to do classes, to whatever. So you've done at least one library show. How did you find
I've
that?
done 2 library
Okay.
shows.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't expect, like you say, didn't expect to sell, but it certainly got things out there, and they are super cheap as well. They might do it for free. I just did a show in a library, a huge library, and it cost £40 for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely
amazing.
nothing. And the space was amazing. There was so much wall space. It was crazy. They had a brilliant gallery area that just wasn't being used as much as it could. I felt that in libraries, I would like to have done a talk, been actually more present. We couldn't get that organised. But I think if you can do that as well, so that you have a couple of events at the library while your art is there, that is something else that you could do to make it even more worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really, really good advice. A lot of artists feel like they are awkward socially or they're super shy or whatever. But, when you talk about something that you love doing, your passion becomes contagious. When you know why you're painting, and you certainly know why you're painting and what you're saying, Fee,
Yeah.
it becomes easier and you can't think yourself into confidence. You just have to do it and see what you're
Yeah.
made of. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We were talking before we started the podcast about mindset. You have to have, belief in your product. If you don't, then you're not going to sell it. You're not going to. So that's why we paint things that we believe in and we're passionate about. And then, as you say, the marketing will just come naturally.
Yeah, exactly. But all of this is about being proactive. So it's not just saying my art career will only exist if I get into a gallery and one gallery show will make or break in my career. There's this attitude, and I've come across it when I've gone live on social media talking about art businesses and all that. There's this attitude of I just need to be discovered. And it's a very passive thing, and you can't wait to be discovered. You have
Yeah.
to make people discover you. Like picture grabbing them by the ears and pointing their face at your art and making them pay attention. That's marketing basically. It's grabbing somebody by the ears and saying, "Look at my shit." Pardon my French. So that they pay attention. And you have to do that over and over and over again until they realize that you've got something amazing or they realize that you're not for them and they want their ears back. So
Exactly. I mean, it's a bit of a fairy tale, isn't it? This sort of like waiting for to be discovered, to be found. You've got to show yourself, and it's changing that view about your art. That that it's a business. Once you get that in your head, you're running a business. You're not just this sort of ethereal person floating around waiting to be discovered. Then it's a completely different approach.
It is, absolutely. I just finished reading that amazing book, Mrs. Van Gogh, last night, and I've always been aware of the story of Vincent Van Gogh and all that, Van Gogh, but um, I wasn't aware of how much work that Joanna did to make Vincent's paintings be remembered. Like a lot of artists I've come across, and I've refuted this, say that, oh, I'll be famous after I die. No, no, after you die, you disappear. Your artwork
Mm.
becomes irrelevant or whatever. And I know this because my uncle didn't have, he's passed away about 12 years ago now. No, 14 years ago. Anyway, he was a really well-known artist, but he had no plans for what to do with his art after he died. There was no cohesive anything. I've been finding pieces of his in galleries and buying them as soon as I can find them because it's just random, oh, he was an artist once kind of thing. You can't depend on that. You have to make people discover your work. And
Absolutely.
another podcast episode we can talk about is dealing with your estate after you pass. But the attitude of I'm waiting to be discovered and I'll be famous after I die, both of those are completely false. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. And as I say, the big lesson that you learn from Joanna is, that Vincent, his luck was having her who was fighting his corner, because other than that, nobody would know who he is. The fact, the work she did, and the family continues to do today,
yeah,
has made Van Gogh probably one of the most famous artists ever, not his artwork. It was the marketing and the publicity. So you just
exactly.
think how many millions of artists we don't know about.
Exactly. And if you're an artist right now and you're waiting for that discovery or to die and be famous, it's pointless. Go and make people discover you. Make
Yeah.
people. And
It's
also
like
if
waiting for Prince Charming.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like just be aware that it takes a lot of work. And even for things that we feel like are fads, I've watched, especially when my kids were growing up, fads come and go, like silly bands, those little shaped elastics and all of that. Those are carefully placed marketing effects, basically.
Nothing is by chance.
Nothing is by chance. Even like little back in the 70s, what was that? The little pet rocks and all that. That wasn't by accident. The guy had so many ideas. Pet rocks was the one that he managed to hit the right time, the right message, and it took off. But it wasn't taking off by accident. Like these are the things that we have to do. We have to realize as artists, as you said, art. If you want to sell your art and make a living off of it, you're running a business. You
Yeah.
have to realize that there's a lot of trying things until something sticks. And so the artists who come out of nowhere, it's not because they've had one good gallery show, it's because they've had 20 shit ones. And then one good one had the right people attend with the right press around it and the right connections showed up. But that wouldn't have been their first. It would have been their 21st or 51st or whatever.
Exactly. And I do think that sort of adage is that if you do a show and you don't sell anything or whatever, it's not that there's anything wrong with your art. It's actually that you were showing it in the wrong place.
Mhm.
Is always good to keep in the forefront of your mind as an artist.
Yeah, and just attending a show and connecting with people, even if you don't sell, is still a good thing. The number of commissions I got months after shows because people took my business cards and hung on to them. And then when they had the funds or they had the brain capacity, they would reach out and say, "Oh, I saw you at XYZ and I really want to have whatever." Like I've had that happen so many times that it was just like nothing is ever wasted. No effort is ever
Yeah,
wasted. You just don't know
absolutely.
what's
There is
coming
no
from it.
waste of times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think we've covered this topic in full. And that was a fun discussion about gallery shows with me, Paula Telizyn, and artist Fee Marks. I'm also an artist. And this was episode 2 of Art Crush. So stay tuned for our next episode of Art Crush, where we'll talk about something else arty and interesting and creative.